This film, entitled Inclusive Practice is Good Practice, features inclusive dance practitioners from all over the United Kingdom and a few beyond, discussing their approaches and advice. There are so many wonderful companies and individuals represented in this film, and there are many more around the country. The artists in this film refer to inclusive dance in a number of contexts. Inclusive dance encompasses both working in groups specifically to meet the needs of people with disabilities, and also working with people with and without disabilities together. Their experience and specialisms involve working to meet varying needs, including a range of learning disabilities and physical disabilities, hearing and vision impairment, people with health conditions, chronic illness and invisible disability. The artists you'll hear from work across the sector with people of different ages, in different settings, and with varying dance experience, including within community dance and professional dance, teaching, performance and collaboration. Much of the advice overlaps, and some of it even contradicts. There's no right or wrong way to be a good inclusive dance practitioner. There are so many ideas and tools out there to try, and this film's aim is to inspire you on a path to find your way. A good inclusive dance practitioner often has to meet a range of needs all at once and respond to those in the room, but the same could be said of a good dance practitioner in general. Hence, inclusive practice is good practice.
What advice would you give someone starting out in inclusive dance?
I would recommend that anyone starting out in inclusive dance take the time to empathise with the needs of each of their dancers. It's essential to see each person as an individual and identify the best way of working with them. Through setting individual goals and creating a truly person-centred experience, it prevents you making assumptions about an individual's ability, goals and personal likes and dislikes. This understanding of dancers' goals means that you can meet with positive facilitation. And these goals may vary greatly from professional aspirations, development of technical ability, or purely social or physical interaction.
Be creative. You are very useful. You bring some different talents inside the company, or you're willing to share your other ideas. It's all really useful because you're very creative. It brings out the person in you who's really the focus will shine in like many ways. Even simple, you don't have to worry too much. Let the ideas flow through your body and bring the courage and bring your courageousness outside, and be happy and enjoy who you actually are. That's my advice to you, people out there. Thank you.
When you're starting out, I would suggest to try to avoid the feeling that you need to do everything yourself. Use your team members and people you're working with to share the load. You don't need to do everything, and if you try to do everything, you will burn yourself out. Also, resist the temptation to fill every part of a session with sound and activity. I think it's very important to leave space. People need physical space. They also need space in time, and they also need headspace in order to incorporate and to understand. And those spaces give you time as well to evaluate the session as you're going along.
Yes, it is hard work, and it generally takes more time and more consideration to work in an inclusive practice, because you're working with so many diverse people. There's so much variation. You really have to consider who it is that you're working with. But I would say it's definitely worth it. I know that my inclusive dance teaching has improved my teaching practice as a whole. Generally, inclusive practice and inclusive teaching, the tools that you use are just exaggerated versions of good teaching practice.
work together with your students and to learn from each other. And that will enable you to become better. So you've got to have, as they call it, a growth mindset, always open and always willing to learn.
Firstly, to shadow a creative practitioner, be that a teacher or an inclusive dance company, or even a range of practitioners, because I think another part of advice that I would give would be to really reflect on what aspect of inclusive dance practice you feel most passionate about and most drawn towards. Is that teaching? Is that fundraising? Is it supporting? Is it advocating for? Is it, ensuring that as many people as possible know about inclusive dance practice? So is that more like a marketing thing, as well as or is it like a teaching or choreographing mode?
Seek out training opportunities, so continuing professional development opportunities, or CPD. Find companies that interest you and contact them to see if there are any training opportunities currently available.
Be very clear about the purpose and direction of your work, about your project and why you want to do it. Make sure you've spent as much time as possible investing your time into really understanding the needs of your community and the people that you're going to be working with. Then be willing to let your project evolve with the changing times and with feedback from all of your members and those that are central to your work.
I think what it is that arsenal of stuff that you've built up over the years, if you've been doing this for any length of time, or you're during your training, and during your reading, and do read, and do learn, and do keep learning. I go to a class and I don't generally have thought about it that much. I have an idea, I'm going to do this today. If I've taken this problem on with me, whatever, we'll see what happens. But I don't overthink it. If you, for me anyway, if I start thinking, okay, I want it to go this way, whoop, it'll never happen. It'll never happen. Again, I can tell you billions of stories where it's just ended up in a joyous mess, and I've loved every minute of it.
And build that strong network base, because you never know where or when you're going to need it. And again, just say yes to every opportunity that you get given, or go look for those opportunities. See if there's something unique that you can provide to other organisations, like support organisations, theatres, schools, and again, you never know where it's going to lead to.
So inclusive dance is a field that is so wide. It's really important, I think, to know whether your primary interest is in being a performer or a teacher. Of course you can be both, but when you're starting out, having clarity around that is really useful. If you want to be a teacher, then go and work with experienced teachers, workshop leaders, find out as much as you can about the skill of pedagogy. If it's a performer, then again, different kind of workshops that you want to be going to see as much performance as you can. But clarity around that will help you shape your future.
My advice would be to be curious, be playful, to teach something that you know and that you enjoy, to be willing to be surprised and to allow yourself to be surprised.
Be who you are. Don't hide parts of your way, like your disability. I hid my disability for years, trying to be a normal person, trying to pretend to be a sighted person. So bring your disability forth. Let it touch your movement, your body. Let it inform how you express yourself. Be congruent and transparent. Let that difficulty in you become your gift. Let it touch people. And bring it forth with confidence. Really allow yourself to sit into who and what you are. and then it'll be simple for people to receive you.
So I would have 2 pieces of advice. My first would be to ask questions. So participants or cast members are experts on their own experience. You might not be. So ask questions. Our job, or my job as facilitator, is to stimulate or provoke or encourage participants. My second piece of advice would be to create a schedule that works for everyone. So don't assume that everybody can work to your timings, but at the start of the project or process, work with everybody to create a plan that suits all, or build something that has flexibility within it.
So when you're starting out in inclusive dance, I think the best thing to do is talk to friends and colleagues, go to the dance companies and the dance artists you know that already have such a massive knowledge in how to make their dance classes and how to make their practice inclusive. I think it's also really important that as disabled artists we jump out of what we know as what is inclusive, because we have so much lived experience and knowledge of how to make things accessible for us. But I think it's really important to go away and talk to other people, other disabled artists, about how you can best actually serve the wider disabled dance community and not just support your own access needs.
Don't worry about saying the wrong thing. Don't worry about saying the wrong terminology or using the outdated terms. Don't worry about causing offence. Genuinely, it's all about the intention behind the words you choose to use. You can very easily get tense and think, oh, I don't want to offend people by saying the wrong thing. That's just going to lead down a horrible place. Just keep calm. Just realise that you can say whatever you need to say in a manner that you think is fitting, so long as the intention is correct.
Making sure you have the right support, just like I had my mum and dad helping me to fulfill my dream as a dance leader. Make sure you stay nice and strong. There's no right or wrong, just follow your heart and make sure the world gets to know you.
Simplicity is your biggest friend. Within a simple task lies so many directions and outcomes. Start simply and everything else will follow. A question mark invites exploration. How does it feel to move your arm? Invites 1,000 sensations. Move your arm invites a quick mechanical response. Give your group the gift of time. Time to explain and demonstrate each task as you teach. Time for each participant to try the same exercise with different partners. Give yourself the time to settle and watch the dance unfold.
Stay up to date, stay connected, and stay balanced. Staying up to date can mean attending training courses, following companies, reading and researching, and above all, seeing lots of dance work. Stay connected, find a network, a mentor if you can. Freelancing can be lonely, so it's important to have a support network and friends in the sector. Stay balanced. This work is all-consuming, so it's important to find time to rest, reflect, and refocus.
Learn about inclusive dance. It has been around for 40 years or so. It has developed and keeps on changing. I've been working for some 20 years in inclusive dance, and I'm still learning and I'm still ignorant. Inclusive dance is not dancing with or for people with disabilities, but participating with your own identity and diversity. As a non-disabled, white, queer man, I need to reflect on what my role is in inclusive dance. A core principle for me is recognize your strengths, respect your limitations, and pursue your interests, be that as a dancer, teacher, or choreographer.
Knowing what inclusive dance is a really shifting thing. It's not one formula or lots of tricks. It's constantly using the experience and the knowledge that you gain and then rethinking and reflecting and keeping on improving.
When I first started working with people with learning disabilities, I very soon realised that if you aim high and give people with learning disabilities the opportunity to excel, they step up to the mark and beyond. I had a very clear vision of what I wanted to achieve, and this would aspire to excellence. It's sometimes been a hard journey, as in general, people have low expectations of what a person with a learning disability can achieve. So do your research, follow your intuition, aim high, stick to your vision, and prepare to be amazed.
How would you describe your approach to inclusive dance practice? How did this help you decide the values of your company or decide who to work with?
My approach to inclusive practice is based on a model from gathering from all my different professional experiences. For me, I brought together my background in education, dance and therapy, and together created a model which doesn't just think about celebrating difference, but thinks about when we move, we feel. I'm very interested in inclusive practice and how it impacts on our well-being, and that when dancers feel emotionally safe, they can become challenged in any way and form. And that is the model in which I practice.
It's to really reflect a human approach, a humanness in our work. We're not trying to be anything that we're not. And just the belief that anybody can dance. And it can be a very small dance or it can be a fully embodied dance, but all of us can dance.
I've always worked on different projects with different people in very different situations and settings, and I think I like that as an approach, just to try and get away from the labels that we put on each other and just to work with people who are in that room at that time.
When I became disabled, I didn't have access to classes, I didn't have anybody who could help me adapt things, I didn't have a space, and I looked at all the barriers that I personally had and I've put those in place to help other people. So if you aren't disabled and you're starting your inclusive dance practice, definitely talk to somebody who's had this kind of experience, who's got a disability, and learn from them, because a lot of the things that you're going to want to adapt and the barriers, these people have come across before.
My approach to inclusive dance has been to see ability and potential rather than disability. So many of our participants grew up being told what they can't do and to see their limitations, and I experienced the same growing up around disability. So it's really important to create a sense of confidence and trust and fun and creativity, and a place where people can express themselves and learn and develop self-belief, because there are already so many barriers to participation out there. And I think coming into an environment where people are encouraging you rather than being obsessed with risk assessments and worried about all the things that can go wrong. Yes, you need to have an understanding of those things, but don't let them take over what dance is supposed to be about.
Everything we can do can involve everyone and anyone. We have workshops in the community for everyone to get involved in. We are dancer-led, disability inspired.
Make everybody feel welcome. To ensure I create a safe and brave space that is accessible for everybody. I want people to have fun. I want to build community. and I want people to explore what they can do with their own bodies and working with others. I do that through radical inclusion, being clear about what intentions are and what the essence of material or exercises I'm trying to explore. Everyone learns differently and takes information and processes in different ways. So I always try to give verbal and visual demonstrations and cues, using of imagery, actions, and qualities.
And every year, we have a company of 40 dancers. So every year we welcome them on the very first day and say, we love that you're here, we welcome you here, and we're so excited to find out how we can best support each and every one of you to reach your fullest potential.
I have a people-centered approach. I love connecting with people and genuinely believe that every individual is creative. I strive to cultivate a space that is full of possibility and curiosity, where dancers take ownership and feel empowered. Essentially, the same approach I'd have if I was working as a choreographer or working in any other settings.
Keep classes small and set up a comfortable, supportive atmosphere during a technique class so that the dancers can feel free to ask questions. We include alignment, placement and posture in class, and we try not to rush this as it's really important. We teach in bite-sized chunks, breaking taught movement sequences down to their component parts. Giving a movement number or name can sometimes help the dancers to remember difficult sequences.
Try not to be body part specific, so not mentioning specific body parts, but thinking about perhaps feelings or images that the dancers can connect to. Use of language, so using phrases, for example, such as move or shift through the space rather than run or walk through the space. Let go of any preconceptions of what a technique class might look like, quote unquote. Try to be open to seeing different interpretations of the exercises that you're delivering, and welcome those. So welcome different interpretations so that people don't feel like they have to move in your way, they're moving in their own way. And really encourage dancers to move in their own way while they're connecting to the exercises that you're delivering.
It is very important for me to keep a flow moving, both in terms of dealing with our own bodies, but also in terms of creating an energy flow in the space that we can all feed off from. It is very important for me to have an understanding of who I have in this space at the given time, who is participating, for me to observe, but also for the participants to observe each other, to feed off from each other.
I use improvisation a lot in class. I believe that by encouraging dancers to improvise, you're giving them permission to release and to show their own creativity. I try and make sure that the atmosphere of the session is one of encouragement, of positivity, and it's completely non-judgmental. We make it clear that where movement is concerned, there's no wrong way of moving. So this makes the dancers feel much more confident and start to relax, and that when people are relaxed, creativity will usually thrive.
At Stopgap, our key principles that underpin all of our work are inclusion and rigour. So with inclusion, we say that difference is our means and our method. This means that we are interested in working with diverse talent, bringing them together and making discoveries about each individual and how that can come together as a cohesive whole. Rigour is really important. We are always striving for high quality output and to give people a high quality experience in dance.
Our whole ethical framework is built around 4 pillars of safety, equality, dignity, and above all, fun. We believe that every person has the right to access the multiple benefits of dance, and it's our mission at Paradance UK to achieve this.
So with professional dancers, whether they're disabled or non-disabled, we come together and the intent is to express a choreographic meaning. So whether that's a story, a theme, an emotion we're trying to express, we'll do it through challenging ourselves creatively and coming up with the best ways we can think of to express that point. Always making sure that we're safe and we're communicating clearly to ensure what we're doing we're all comfortable with. With the community dancers that I work with, it's more about the fun. So people come and dance for different reasons. It's to maybe make friends, to socialise, to improve their mental or physical well-being or health. It could be a form of exercise, but most of the time it's about fun. So what we'll do in community dance classes will be a lot different to what I do with my professional dancers. How this then describes my values is, for the community groups, is it fun and is it inclusive? And as long as everyone's engaged and enjoying themselves, then that's something we'd want to get involved with. This then impacts on who we work with, because we want to ensure that they also value our values, which is to engage everybody, to keep everybody included, and for everyone to enjoy themselves.
To be responsive to the participants, to their needs, to their ideas, and to the way they want to and are able to move. I feel this approach aligns completely with Dance Syndrome's disability-led ethos and was one of the reasons I was really interested in working with them.
I want to be in an environment where the focus is principally on dance, and where there is criticality and creativity, and that everybody involved is engaged really to their full potential, where there is support for the artists involved, but that support doesn't diminish the creative process or the product.
As a company, Coral and I got together to describe our approach to inclusive dance. Including everyone, valuing other people, giving everybody a chance to connect with us. Anybody is welcome, regardless of who they are, valuing difference. It's our approach to ensure that everyone is seen, heard, and gets to deliver their creative genius. I think it's facilitating a safe place for creativity and expression, to be shared in terms of individuality. It's acknowledging and understanding that everyone has something creative to bring to a process. Empowering people, whether in participatory or performance work.
We don't exclude anyone from our dance company. We welcome anyone who's got different disability. We welcome them in our company.
Everybody wants to find a place where they fit in. And in my dance classes, I tend to try and make everybody feel welcome. Not just in the space, but also feel like they're welcome to give me information as much as I'm giving them information. If everybody feels comfortable, that's fantastic. That's what we want. In that way, I think the best image, or best way for me to describe this is to say that I like it when everybody is a Robin and no one is a Batman. Batman's the guy at the front, the one who takes the applause and the one who gets all the limelight, whereas Robin, he's the sidekick. He's the person who's always pushing other people forward. He's always wanting the best for other people. If I am a Robin and I'm pushing you forwards, I'm expecting a Robin to be next to me, pushing me forwards. In that way, everybody is pushing each other forwards. No one gets left behind.
participation over performance. So we encourage dancers to join in to the best of their ability, happily and safely, but also for those who don't actually necessarily consider themselves as dancers, makes them feel that they can join in some way, but also it portrays this idea that we believe everyone and anyone can dance.
Well, Independence was founded because of the lack of opportunity for people of different abilities to come together in dance.
As a non-disabled dancer, coming into inclusive practice just before 2000, the one thing I took with me then was just to try things out, to jump in, get going and get active, and that has stayed with me. So I think to try things out is important. Then to take some time to have time to test and question and rework a plan, to plan another time and do it again is important. And lastly, I think now more clearly to listen and to facilitate others is an important aspect. To take on board what other people with different experiences have to say and take that into account in order to create the best inclusive practice.
So a really important part of my practice is to challenge people. The aim of a session is for everyone to leave having felt or experienced something new. I always think it's quite boring if I can imagine in my head everything that happens in a session. Things can surprise participants, they can surprise me, and this is a success.
Our approach at Parable Dance is through our 5 core values: accessibility, inclusivity, progression, development, and enjoyment. To make dance, art, and community available to all. To respect everyone's ideas and contributions. To learn technique, performance skills, and create choreography. To provide training and consultations to teachers to develop their skills. And to enrich social experiences through fun and engaging workshops.
What can we be doing to ensure that we are not excluding people?
In terms of thinking about your approach to make sure that you're not excluding people, I would start with a caveat, which is that you will never be able to provide a 100% inclusive experience. So a couple of things I would say is, firstly, think about your marketing and promotion. How are people finding out about your opportunities? Are disabled people going to be able to access those opportunities in the way that you're communicating them? Think about different formats, such as easy read, large print, audio, video. And the same goes for when people sign up to your opportunities. The second thing I would say is, think about that initial contact that people have with you. The expression first impressions count is really, really critical.
The space that you choose to host your project, your rehearsals, is obviously very key to ensuring complete accessibility for each member. That it is entirely accessible is a basic necessity. It sounds very obvious, but the number of times that I've gone into a building which is accessible and I've used my wheelchair but have then needed somebody else to come and get me over a lip or open a fire door, or just help me with distances at times, that's then not a very accessible space for us. So I find what's really useful is to just involve a diverse range of members in going to see spaces or talking about the spaces, talking about the challenges that they might have in accessing a space, and that way nobody starts on a back foot.
And make access to our sessions more difficult is one of transport costs. So people may have the wish to join but just can't afford the special transport costs or the taxis. So at the Freewheelers, we have a bursary scheme, which means that there's support in place for those that may need help with those costs.
We need to be sure that we take into account other people's access needs. So do we need to have a silent interpreter? Do we need to have a support worker in the room? Do we need to use audio description in our class?
A workshop begins before the first person enters the room. So once you've checked out the space and you're comfortable and you're familiar with that space, be aware of your students as they enter. So taking the time to notice how someone comes in, greeting them, making them feel welcome, but also just noticing as people come in, what's the kind of energy of the day, so that you are already absorbing information about your group, and you can then pitch the day in relationship to that group energy that is there in the room.
I mean, for myself, I enjoy always to begin in a circle when I'm out facilitating a workshop, which means that we have an opportunity to all face each other at the same time. We can all see each other, we can all view each other, and we are all equal in that circle. It means that I feel less authoritative myself, even though I am facilitating the workshop, but because we can all see each other, I feel a part of the group, and the group feel sort of a part of me.
And then there are the physical things that we can do. So if a sight impaired person arrives into my class, I will walk the space with them, and I will tell them who's in the room and the names of the people, so they get a sense of the floor, the walls, where the windows are, where's the piano, where are the chairs where I put my stuff. So there's a sense of familiarity. I also like to work with circle time in kind of a proximal way, so touch can be part of that. So there's a sense of who we are now. And then working with eyes shut and touch and low to the ground work. So there's a sense of changing perspectives, but also sharing perspectives.
I am a wheelchair user and feel more included if everyone is at my height and sitting on chairs when we are talking. It means I can see everybody too.
Look around in the room. Who's not there? Who has not been invited into that space? And invite them.
To ensure that people are not excluded, we can resource our projects well, with a high ratio of practitioners to participants. And we can train a pool of volunteers and assistants to make sure we have plenty of people in the room with inclusive dance knowledge. We can find a variety of ways of communicating in the studio, such as using Makaton and sign language. We can get to know our dancers and their learning styles and make sure we cater for all the different styles, such as visual and kinesthetic. And above all, we can listen and respond to our group and offer a person-centred approach.
We use things like Makaton, so our staff members use Makaton sign language, which is a sign language. It's for people with a learning disability, and a lot of our members use that as a way to communicate. But we think a lot about accessibility, so we provide our newsletters, so you can have them in large print if you want them, or you can have them, we've just started our audio newsletter, which is a visual thing. A lot of our information is easy read as well, so and also we're open to be challenged. You know, if people need something different, we'll try to suit our members' needs.
Verbal language can also be a barrier to accessing a dance class. Ways that you can improve your communication could be things like visual resources as a way to support what you're asking your students to do. A big bag of props is always really helpful to give people a concrete experience of your task. And finally, exploring non-verbal ways that you might engage people in things like improvisation.
Using too much verbal instruction can exclude people, particularly those with learning disabilities. You might want to think of ways to reduce language by removing unnecessary words. This helps to increase understanding and allows participants to focus more on you and the task that you're presenting. For example, if you were leading a stretch, instead of saying, "Now we're going to do a stretch," you might say, "Now, stretch."
By not using body part specific language or technical dance vocabulary that might alienate people. So for example, you could say travel rather than walk. You could describe a movement where you reach down and touch the floor as folding forwards or reaching downwards. Or you could use the idea of using words like spiral or rotate instead of technical language like pirouette.
Teaching in teams is a key way to ensure that we don't exclude anyone. That extra person can provide one-to-one support for anyone who may need it, and also helps the space feel much more creative, responsive and collaborative.
I believe if we take a person-centered approach, then no one will be left behind. If we as practitioners are open to change, are reflective in our approach, and are willing to receive feedback on how we might apply or do things differently, I think then we will truly be able to meet the needs of every dancer. We need to work in partnership with them, their families, and possibly even the professionals that support them in being able to be the best dancer that they can be.
I think I can speak for the whole of the NYDC team when I say one of our favorite nights of the whole entire year is our skills sharing night. And this is a chance after rehearsals where we can bring everyone back together and we kind of let our hair down. So it's a chance where, we've got 40 people in the company from all different styles and backgrounds from all over the country. So it's a chance to center each individual and celebrate them for who they are and what they love about themselves. And they get a chance to teach that skill to everybody else. So oftentimes it's about their physicality, a type of way that they move, but also sometimes it's about sharing a skill in, say, beatboxing or line drawing or British Sign Language. So there's so many things that we can do, and it's a chance to really celebrate all of that variety that we have within ourselves. It centers each individual while also giving them a chance to teach their skill to everybody else. So we all are more connected by the end. We all know each other a little bit better, and we've all developed loads of new skills, or the beginnings of new skills.
One thing that needs constant thinking about is how we avoid excluding people from dance. To answer this, I would like to talk about my first and second auditions for NYDC. Obviously, I didn't pass the first one. That was mainly because I was too freaked out by the whole process. As a person with autism, new places, new people, instructions living at speed are pretty much impossible to deal with. Even when you are performing moves, you are worried that you may not be doing things right. In my second audition, my friends at Carlisle helped to ensure that I had a dedicated helper with me. He repeated instructions for me and gave me a lot of encouragement. The rest is history. Can I add that I have noticed that auditions are now called workshops? Great idea. So much more friendly and less intimidating.
A key element of true inclusivity is, of course, to make sure that your members are reflected through the whole organisation, from volunteers to board members. And for that to happen, your recruitment policy needs to be robust and fully inclusive. For a disabled dancer, the only advice I can really give is to make sure that you find people that value you as a dancer and that are willing to put in the time to creating the pathways with you in order to really uncover your true potential.
I think also look into the ethics and politics of inclusive practice, which I think can help. It will help you articulate what you stand for, and identify the systemic barriers which exclude people from mainstream dance practices, which I think will help navigate the tensions that you will be working within, because inclusive dance practice is really trying to open up spaces that, normative mainstream dance practice has purposely excluded so many people with disabilities or long-term health conditions or vulnerabilities from. So kind of being able to identify the systemic barriers helps advocate for equality and equity.
Something that's important to help with this is trying to make sure that you have diversity right at the top of your organisation or who you're working with. So whether that's in leadership or whether that's in the teaching team, trying to make sure that you have diversity there. This isn't always possible to start with, so if you don't already have diversity, say in your teaching team, have a look at who it is that you're working with. Is there anyone that you're working regularly with who maybe has that extra level of dedication, extra level of enthusiasm, who's always there, who's always ready at the front of the class, and it has that enthusiasm.
We also need to think about where we're advertising our classes. Are we advertising to a diverse range of networks, or are we always advertising to the same groups? And how can we diversify our networks and maybe sort of interrogate our practice a bit more?
I am an ASE user. I use a high-tech communication aid, but communication can still be difficult. My tips for working with someone who uses a communication aid like me or uses other alternative methods of communication is to give them time to answer questions. Be patient as responses are slow. If there is something being discussed in a session, let an ASE user know beforehand so they can program their thoughts. Often conversations have moved on before comments can be programmed. In a group discussion, directly ask an ASE user a question to give them a chance to answer. Never finish off sentences for an ASE user or read over their shoulder without permission to do so.
As a non-disabled artist, I see myself as an ally in inclusive dance. It is important to diversify the leadership of companies and projects. It is at the least about co-teaching, co-working, about providing and facilitating training opportunities, but also about stepping back and giving space to disabled artists.
Tips for teaching, go-to tools. What approaches do you use?
I think it's really lovely if you can to start a session with something physical. It could be something quick, fun, a bit like an icebreaker, and it's a nice way to just get going and get rid of the nerves, settle in, get to know each other before you then do a lot of talking and organising.
From my own experience as a disabled teacher, choreographer and dancer, I always want to create rituals so everyone feels welcome. And that may begin with a circle, having a check-in. What do I need to know to be able to work with you today? I want everyone to have the opportunity to express what their access needs are and how they're feeling today, where they are between 1 and 10.
So I would suggest that when you meet a new group, start with creative tasks first. And then that way you get a sense of what movement capacity there is within the group, and that way you can start to design your own movement sequences that suit everybody.
A tool for me, and something that I begin all of my classes with, is to be milling around the space, for us all to have a chance to tune into our own bodies in movement, in motion, and for me to have a chance to see who is in the space and who I am facilitating for, who is participating at the given time.
Learn people's names. If you can, get a hold of a list of names before you start the workshop. It always makes that learning process easier. The faster you learn people's names, the more comfortable people feel in the space.
For the beginning of any session, I like to start off with name and shape. And you start in a circle, and each person says or signs their name, or has it said or signed for them, and makes a shape. And then the rest of the group repeat that name and that shape back. So we're all taking ideas and information from one another. There's not just one person who's doing all the talking and everybody else having to listen and take it in.
Consider setting up a class contract or a list of really clear boundaries in your sessions, especially in regular or weekly classes and especially with children. This isn't to be restrictive, but to help establish the intentions for the session, to ensure that things can run as smoothly as possible. Everyone in the group can contribute to the contract, so they're part of deciding the rules to abide by. It gives ownership and choice, and it helps people feel valued and heard.
Start your sessions with something known and familiar. People love routine, and they love revisiting something that they really enjoy, and that settles people into the session.
I work from the individual me to you and us. How do I move and dance? How do I do this with you? And how does this come together as us?
Treat each individual class as a group exploration. You're inviting and supporting everyone to find the methods and means that suit themselves and their dance partners. Invite discussions and openness. Foster a sense of finding a pathway as a team rather than putting pressure on yourself to solve a problem.
I work with the floor. I think the floor has an amazing capacity to soften the nervous system. It brings a quality of touch in, it brings weight in, it brings gravity in. So I think working with the floor, working with the horizontal is a great starting place. And from there, development can happen, moving through animal qualities of creeping, crawling, crouching, and then up into standing and out into space. So I feel it's a really lovely way of working in and out of the ground, bringing spatial qualities in. So work with the floor.
Plie is a wonderful descriptive word, to bend. But in the dance world, we've kind of become accustomed to using plie to mean bend your knees. It doesn't mean that, it means bend. So you can bend your arms. If you use that terminology for everybody to understand, everybody can explore different avenues. It creates a lexicon or a language that you and other people in the space can use. It also creates shortcuts. You don't have to say, crawl low to the floor, extend your limbs, reaching as far as you can, traveling from that side to that side. That was a long way of saying something that can be shortened down by saying, crawl like Spider-Man. For young kids, they know that image, they understand that image. So be responsive to the people in the space. If you're teaching young people, use terminology they'll understand. If you're using older people, use terminology they can understand. Create a language that works for you.
Use transitions, especially with younger students. When I'm teaching my younger class with disabilities, I do an activity where I do wheels on the bus, and I've got a coloured spot and I use the spot as a wheel, but also I lead into the next activity by letting them drive around like they're driving a bus or a car to the next point of the next task, or I may get them to balance the spot on their head and we do a little balance exercise into the next task. So it's not stop and start. So there's some kind of engagement, but they're always doing something and they're always keeping engaged.
Make sure that the move I describe is described broadly initially. So by that I mean, rather than saying, for example, the move is 2 steps forward and 2 steps back, I might say it's a movement forward and a movement back. And I'll then give examples of how this can be achieved. So it might be steps, it might be the movement of the wheelchair forward and back, or it might be a lean forward and a lean back. And then the individuals will all be given further support to achieve this.
Create music playlists for a session beforehand. Have more songs than you need and trust your instinct on those songs. If you're working alone, then music can be your biggest ally.
And especially if you've got people who have got visual difficulties, and just in general, it's really worthwhile thinking about what you're wearing so that you stand out. Because I've done some things before where I've worn light clothes and I've looked back and thought, well, that's not very easy for you to see, Kate, that's not a good idea. So I have had feedback before from people with this visual difficulties saying, you know, change your outfit. So that's another thing that's worth thinking about.
Don't shy away from giving detailed corrections. Often this is overlooked when teaching dance to people with learning disabilities. In terms of resources, we film our dancers and teachers during a technique class, and this supports the dancer's movement memory and can be used for additional practice and for home study.
If you keep adapting, especially on the moment, in the moment, and then you take that and you know for next time, I think that's just really, really important. Is don't be scared to go into a dance space, think you have everything planned out, but actually in the moment you might have to adjust and adapt. And I think a lot of dance teachers and choreographers are actually quite used to doing that, especially on freelance work. But I think it's something that if we included into our wider practice, I think it would really help us individual facilitators and teachers and choreographers to learn how to just much quicker adapt to those things in the space.
My first top tip is to be a good role model. 2 is to be loud and clear when giving instructions. 3, to show visual aids if they don't understand, which can be images, coloured cards, or it could be just props. Number 4 is to make sure you have a backup plan in case if something isn't right.
I find that with people that are new to dance as well, they might find it difficult to make a decision for themselves about how best to adapt that routine to their body. So for me, maybe if we were doing like a ballet 5th position and your arms are above your head, that could be difficult for some of the members of my group with their shoulders. So I'll offer the alternative of you can keep that in a 1st, you could keep that down by your side. Instead of big arm circles, we might just do lower arm circle, it might just be a hand circle, it might even be a finger circle, it could just be a little, imagining your nose is doing a circle, so that everyone's still engaged and included, but you are not kind of excluding people by expecting them to come up with their own adaptations to your movement.
To get used to using open questions, so there are opportunities to think of different solutions to any problem. So rather than saying this is this, that is that correct? Asking, what do you think? What is your idea? How do you think we could move this forward? What do you think we could do about it? So it's always an invitation for a 2-way, if not 3-way or multi-way conversation and communication.
Plan feedback into your sessions. This gives everyone a chance to tell you as the facilitator and the other participants what they thought about the class, performance, or more specifically, a task or phrase shown in a session. It may also give individuals a chance to give and receive constructive criticism or challenge others in the group to expand on one of their ideas. Feedback can be given in a variety of ways, such as a 1-word response, a couple of sentences, or signed using Makaton or British Sign Language.
Build in and set aside time for feedback and reflection. This is hugely beneficial for both teachers and participants, as it provides space for participants to reflect, feel valued, and genuinely listen to. Think about different ways in which you could facilitate this. Maybe it's a one-to-one chat between dancer and teacher at the end of a session. Or it could be written, individual feedback. So dancers are given specific questions in which to respond to, maybe in writing or drawing. Or it could be visually, through using different coloured dots as answers to closed questions. Or you could use these, talking sound buttons for dancers to use.
One of NYDC's favourite tools is called Zen for 10. What this is 10 minutes at the end of every rehearsal day Everybody takes part. It's in the studio and it's 10 minutes of quiet time. It's a chance to decompress, to reflect on what you've learned throughout the day, and then to do whatever works for you to help integrate what you've learned. So this could mean writing things out in order in a linear fashion, perhaps drawing pictures to visualize space. You could be writing a poem, you could be writing feedback from the choreographer, but you could even just lay on the ground and close your eyes, put your headphones in, and just imagine an amazing opening night with all of your friends on stage. But no matter what you do, we think it's a great tool because it helps to ground everybody. It's a great practice to get into, and it helps everybody to grow personally, but also artistically within a creative process.
Is there anything else you want to say?
The only other thing that I would add is bring everybody on board. It's absolutely key. It's wonderful to have a forward-thinking artistic director or teacher, but you also need every teacher and volunteer and member of that company to be 100% signed up to the ethos and the methods of the company. Make sure you've communicated all and every important aspect of the methodology that you propose to use, and that it is understood and taken on board by everybody involved.
I'd say communication is key. Communicate with your participants, communicate with their support and their families, as they are the experts, and together you'll be able to find the best way of working together.
To give ownership of the dance or the project to the group themselves. So whether it be they make the decision on what costume they want to wear, what piece of music they're dancing to, it could be the whole theme or the whole project, it could be a style of dance they've always wanted to try. I always find that giving people their own ownership, and it gives them a sense of pride of that project, it makes it feel like the dance is theirs, and that gives them a self of achievement and makes them want to come back and do more.
The litmus test of good inclusive practice is not how many people there are in the room, but how effectively those people are engaged in dance.
Sometimes inclusive dance is seen as some fringe practice. For me, inclusive dance sits right in the center of contemporary art. People with their individuality, diversity, and identity moving, dancing, performing, expressing a specific way of being human.
Being an inclusive practitioner should be core to everything that we do. Being inclusive should not be an add-on that is thought about after the task is set or after the dance is choreographed. It should be the very beginning basis of how we think, feel, and move in building an inclusive community.
Another important element to our inclusive practice is that we make sure that we perform our work in really high quality venues, whether that is an art centre or a theatre, so that everyone has access to high quality performance experiences.
I would really encourage you to not just deliver dance, but to do what you can to elevate inclusive dance in the sector to the wider public, and to be a part in trying to create more mainstream opportunities so that we don't have to have this separate tag of inclusive and we just have dance, which involves and includes everybody. So please try to be an advocate, not just a practitioner.
Spread the word in inclusive dance.
There are a huge range of artists and companies featured in this film. We hope it will inspire conversations, a sharing of ideas, and an understanding that inclusive dance is not one way of working, but encompasses a wide range of approaches and methods. We encourage you to reach out to us at Parable Dance and to all of the artists in this film and others in your community to continue the conversations started here. Thank you for watching.